That's me at 33. When I was younger than that, 8 or 9 years old, I knew my dad. That's him, 66 over there. He was a tool designer by trade to earn money for the family, my mother and the 4 of us kids. But I also knew he was an artist. You can see one of his pieces behind him. My dad was trained as a portrait artist, but he was also a sculptor, both in clay and in wood. There was always clay around our house, and I do mean clay, barrels of it, trash barrels of it, huge. My siblings and I could always reach into those barrels and pull out chunks of brown and gray slippery clay. It had to be damped because it was, after all, professional modeling clay. My dad helped us soften it and mold it and encouraged us to create art on our own out of his store of clay. My dad was considered creative. We so often think of someone who is creative as a person who paints or writes or draws or weaves. But so what is creativity? Where does it come from? How do we use it? And how do you and I use it to build this community? Wait a minute. First, let's define creativity. My friend Webster, the dictionary, said it is the ability to transcend traditional ideas, rules, patterns, relationships, and to create meaningful new ideas, forms, methods, inspirations. It is originality, progressiveness, and imagination. Traditionally, we think of someone who is creative as someone who does that and creates music, paints, writes, like Michelangelo, the sculptor, Jason Pollock, the painter, Emily Dickinson, the writer and poet, Taylor Swift, the singer and poet, and Banksy, the street graphic artist, all creative. In our own congregation, we have creative people also. Eric Grote, who builds artistic furniture, including our very own welcoming desk in the lobby. Pamela Kent is the weaver of the hangings at the back of our chapel and also the weavings behind me. Ellen Doino, who created ceramics years ago, and I have a few of them. The late members Laura Dioria and John Rex, who are both watercolorists. Suzanne Sardella and others in this church create lace, not rice, not lice. Lace. Kathy Moriarty, who this morning you've already heard sing songs. Well, I've just named sculptors and painters and writers and singers and weavers, and all are considered creative. But looking at the definition of creativity, might this definition also include many others? Does it only apply to those who paint, build, create music, or weave? No. It seems that the idea of creativity might include many, many more of us in this church and in the world at large. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was driving in a car with my son Eric, and I was talking about the one who grew up in this church. 2 of them did, both those kids. I was talking about preparing this sermon. I had been given the topic of creativity a few days before this car ride. I was explaining to Eric that I wanted to explore creativity in a different way, not just talking about people who are creative or showcasing these talents. I had done that sermon 20 years ago, and it was delightful. But I wanted to do something different this time. As we were talking, I brought up the idea about the dollar bill, e pluribus unum. E pluribus unum means out of many one, and then, oh, out of many one. Eric suggested that I look at it in all the ways in which creativity factors into so many of our lives, no matter our profession or job, because each of us is multifaceted. This intrigued me when I thought of the many individuals I knew and all of the aspects of them, like curiosity, daydreaming, passion, insight, ingenuity. Ah, that's it. Each one of us has within ourselves many roles, many parts. Each person can be more than one thing. And just by living, each is creative. Each truly creates for themselves a life of interest, challenge, and contentment, I hope. Many of us here in this church have more than one aspect to ourselves, which we have used for ourselves and for this church. Roger Keeney, a longtime member of this church and someone who you may have seen in the kitchen, keeping things clean and doing dishes during coffee hour. Did you know that he was also a shortwave radio operator and enthusiast? Did you know that Roger was in the Peace Corps in the 1970s? Did you know that he's given 2 sermons here at this church? Roger is very much a man of many talents and interests. Linda Gardner, longtime member here since 1995, sitting there in the back, probably knitting, not today, but usually knitting. Linda's first job was to work for the Department of Defense. She held top secret clearance as she worked for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. After that job, she went into nurses training. Then, after a short stint as a nurse, she got married, had 2 wonderful sons, and lived in Maryland. Later, she moved to Buffalo, went to Buffalo State College to become a teacher. She taught special ed, and that's something. And then she retired in 2010. Now she's a knitter, a quilter, and loves to walk. Both Roger and Linda, members of our church, personify what it is to live a many-faceted, interesting, and challenging life. As this notion of being more than one thing gelled, it was hard not to realize each and every one of us is in some way creative. In some way, each of us has a passion or interest about something, and we lean into it. I began to delve into creativity and the ways we see people around us and those in history who have created, truly created, something new and transformative. First, as a definition, creativity, part of it said the ability to transcend traditional ideas, rules, patterns, and relationships. Let's look at this: ideas, rules, patterns, relationships. Ralph Waldo Emerson viewed creativity not as a mechanical skill, but he believed that it would be a divine and natural force channeled through the individual. I like that. In his essays like Self-Reliance, or the other one called Art, he puts forth the idea that true creation springs from radical self-trust and rejecting societal conformity, and also listening to that voice of intuition. When I read this, I have to admit, I thought of all the parents and guardians I have seen who somehow make their child less fussy by looking around their environment and creatively making something different out of some common item. I was in a grocery store recently, and I saw a middle-aged man making a balloon out of a plastic vegetable storage bag. He took the bag, filled it with air, and began tossing it back and forth to his 2 kids. The 3 of them all laughed and played. It was a delight to see in the middle of the grocery store, the children laughing and tossing a homemade balloon back and forth. What a joy to see the creative way this man had taken a common grocery store item you've all seen and used and made it into a toy for his children. This man immediately had the intuition that making a toy from what was at hand would be fun and would keep the kids entertained. And their laughter and his told me that he was spot on. This was definitely Emerson's idea, creation, springing from rejecting social conformity. He did not mind dancing around the frozen food section, and instead listening to that voice of intuition, and he made a toy. And a great day those kids will remember. Creativity transcends traditional rules. Gandhi was a creative man. His ideas transcended traditional rules. He took his passion and anger at the British government and their rule of India, and with patience and care and a lot of ingenuity, he helped India become an independent nation through nonviolent civil disobedience. He started developing this philosophy, you might know, in the early 1900s. It wasn't before that. He was influenced by Tolstoy, with whom he became a pen pal eventually. Henry David Thoreau, he was influenced by Hindu traditions, and by the Jain religion's idea of ahimsa, that's non-harm, that was practiced in a temple close to where he grew up, and it truly influenced him a lot. Gandhi left South Africa in 1914. And in the early 1920s, Gandhi led the non-cooperation movement, urging Indians to withdraw their cooperation from British rule, encouraging people to boycott British-made goods, government, schools, and colleges. In 1930, Gandhi walked 240 miles with only 78 carefully selected followers and broke the British salt laws. These laws prohibited anyone from making it, and it was heavily taxed. He broke this by making salt from seawater. People gained strength from Gandhi's creatively using something everyone needs, salt. What an ingenious idea he had. Against the British government, he had to use resistance and patience. It took 32 years. But independence was finally gained. And Gandhi influenced others. Martin Luther King is a perfect example of transcending traditional ideas. Like Gandhi, Dr. Martin Luther King believed that the idea that those with darker skin were seen as less was an idea he abhorred, and he fought against it with great determination, stamina, creativity, and passion. King realized by looking at Gandhi's Salt March that a relatively small group of dedicated people could use nonviolent action, determination, sacrifice, publicity, and mass participation to challenge a powerful government. It had happened. And through his work, the Voting Rights Act was passed. Now, let's look a little closer to home. Let's look at our own congregation for those who have created something different. Firewall, have you ever heard of it? Anyone? Raise your hand if you've heard of Firewall. Good, like that. Well, Firewall, if you haven't heard of it, let me give you a quick synopsis. Diane Tucker created Firewall. This came out of a frustration. As she said to me, she was tired of going into all these groups. So having them come to her into a central place was a perfect idea. She created and leads, along with Peggy Mark and Lorraine Marcus, a meeting which brings together many politically active, passionate people to share information, a new form of transmitting information. This is truly a new form. Each speaker is given 5 minutes to talk about what they are working on. If you haven't been to one of these every third Saturday meetings, I encourage you to check it out. We also have, thinking of transformation and creativity, we have a little free food pantry. The ability to transcend relationships. Relationships, do you always have to buy something? Maria Costello started the Amherst Little Free Pantry. She was creative. She saw a need in this community, and she created the pantry. This pantry provides food daily to the Amherst community. One might think that Amherst did not need a free pantry. Maria thought it did, and she was right. Many from our church were and are intimately involved in this pantry. Marie Evans, Meg Sabella, Doreen Parks, the late Cheryl Tomasulo, Pat Burke, Roger Keeney. If you have been or are involved in this pantry, please raise your hand. Look around you, folks. This is a community who have created and maintain a pantry. What a wonderful group this is. And it's here because someone had the dream and passion to start the pantry for Amherst, and it would provide free food for all who needed it. And now, what I believe is the most important act of creativity in this congregation is creating community. We have created and are creating new forms with our own collective imagination. We create community, and it's not easy. It takes many hands. It takes new ideas, new ways of doing things. It takes the many and making it one. E pluribus unum. Without community, this is just a building, walls, ceilings, and floors. This would be nothing if it were not for the community. But all of you, sitting here and online, you make this a community of thinking, thoughtful, and creative people. Each of us is multifaceted. Each of us has many strengths. I have been acutely aware in the last 2 or 3 years that we have increased in membership, and an incredible amount. The pews are full, and we have many kids, as you saw, a handful of them this morning, in the Faith Development Program. This is absolutely fantastic. Those kids are my future, and I love it. How are we now? And how many more people in the pews we will have in the future? I don't know. We are on the brink of something new and powerful. It is exciting for me to greet all the new faces. What a wonderful place. What a wonderful place. What a wonderful growing place this is, celebrating and centered in love. Gabe Miles, a newbie, now sits in the board of trustees with me and lends his expertise in technology. There's Peggy Mark, along with Lorraine Marcus, who work on the justice advocacy team to make this church a safe place for all to feel welcome. Julie Marcus, a writer by trade, also like Gabe, a more recent member. She is contributing her skills by being on the Leadership Development and Nominating Committee. And the gardens, have you seen them as you drive into church? You can thank Linda Joy and Eric and Wendy and Jill and so many more people who love to get their hands in the soil. So what are your hidden talents? What new gifts will you unearth from within yourselves as we move forward and grow? Just as we drink water from wells we did not dig, and we pick fruit from trees we did not plant, we will continue to be creative and build on what we have here, build with creativity, inspiring each other and moving into the future. Together, we will continue to create. Together, we create community. It's not alone, it's together. It is a creative and wonderful task, this living into the fullness of who we each are and who we are as a community. I see the future where each of us, each of you, are contributing your creative thoughts, your time, your hard work, your passions to growing together. I look out and I see old and new faces. You are here. You bring your creative, interesting, curious, enthusiastic, beautiful selves here. Out of many, one dynamic church community. We have created and will continue to create a wonderful, supportive community with love at the center. For this, I celebrate each and every one of you. And for this precious gift, I thank you. Thank you.